Mark Reardon is in his 19th year as the head baseball coach at Iowa Western Community College, where he has led the Reavers to 12 NJCA World Series appearances, 3 national championships, and 1 national runner-up finish. In 18 seasons, Reardon has amassed a career record of .835 and .228, good for nearly an 800 winning percentage, along with 14 regional titles and 12 Northern District titles. Reardon has coached 18 NJCA All-Americans, and 123 of his former players have gone on to sign with NCAA Division I schools. Prior to Iowa Western, Reardon was an assistant coach at multiple levels. He has been recognized as the ABCA Diamond Sports National Coach of the Year on 3 occasions to go along with his 10 Northern District Coach of the Year honors. Please welcome to the stage, Mark Reardon.
I want to thank Rick Hitt, of course, and the ABCA for this opportunity. I got to do this a while back. I couldn't tell you what year, last year in Orlando. Incredible experience. So obviously to be part of this again and be asked to do it, you know, you go through life, you're either humble or being humbled, and I'm incredibly humble to be in this situation again and hopefully help a lot of guys out there like myself on the other end and give you some stuff that can help you out. I got a little less than 37 minutes here, so I'm going to put in a lot of stuff. But the very first thing I want you to really know about all this is you really got to challenge yourself. And I want you to challenge yourself and have an open mind. Try to take one thing out of every drill, whether it's the drill itself or something out of the drill, and you just got to be creative. You have to be creative. I always say it, you know, the 2 biggest hypocrites in my life are coaches and parents, and I'm both. I'm a coach and a parent. And as I've gone through this and done this for so many years, I've really learned to really critique myself and make sure that I'm being creative, that I'm comfortable with uncomfortable, like we try to preach to our players. And you have to be comfortable when you're trying something new. And that's really what I'm challenging you guys today to do. A lot of this is based on your facilities. Obviously, your manpower. Facilities means nets, machines, you know, all that stuff. Manpower is number of players, of course, assistant coaches, and then the time you have. Traditionally, again, I'm a father. I got a 19-year-old son that plays for me now that I coached when he was younger, and I got a 14-year-old. Whether you're my 14-year-old or a lot of select ball, high school, an hour and a half is really what you get most of the time. So you got to find stuff that fits in that time. Always, every time I speak places, the 2 men that have stole more than anybody in baseball is Ricky Henderson and myself. And why I always put that up with every presentation I do places is, first and foremost, like, these just aren't mine. I've taken these from different people, and you really a melting pot, if you will, of drills and make them into your own for your own program. And so none of this is just my brilliant ideas. It's me taking a lot of stuff and putting it together. So I need to get started. The very first thing is Reaver Bp. This is probably the most popular one, the most known one of my drills that's used around the country, from high schools to select ball to colleges to Power 5 colleges. And to me, it's one of the best drills out there. You've got multiple ways to use this template. And this is, you're going to use this template and make it yours. We call it Reaver Bp. Reaver's our mascot. It's a river pirate. And I wanted our kids to take ownership. It's not just batting practice. It's Reaver Bp, which is a way we play the game. And you're trying to get young men or boys in whatever coach you are at whatever level, you're trying to get them to take ownership. So there's multiple ways to use this. The ideal way is 2 teams. Now, if you don't have 2 teams, I've done it with a 14U team where it's kind of like workup. We didn't use a catcher. Maybe we didn't use a left fielder because the round we were on were no pull rounds. So there's a lot of things that way that you can change up, and I'll talk about them as we go through it. But 2 teams, 1 on defense, 1 on offense, basic rotation. The basic rotation's dead, live, dead, live. The 4th live, they're coming out. The other deads, the defense leaves them alone. You don't run on them. So it's really their offense. It's really them getting their practice, their BP, but yet we're using every other ball. Another way to do it, 6 ball, where you've got a smaller group. You got more time because of a smaller group, so they can get more swings. So you can go 6 balls where it's dead, dead, live, dead, dead, live is a good way to do it as well. When you have smaller groups and more time, that's the ideal situation. And like I said, you can just use 1 runner or 2 runners and 1 hitter at a time. So, and again, you'll see it here on the video. Whichever ball is last ball of the round is your live one, which means the hitter will run it out, whatever it allows him to do, and then he'll come back to hit as well. So as you look at the video, all right, what you're going to see is you're going to see 1 coach throwing. Now, we got other coaches coaching the base paths or coaching the bases 1st and 3rd, but the big thing is you can do this with 1 coach. We have a pitcher right behind the screen. The communication here is huge. They're going to go back up. That ball's in right center. It's a double cut. And then they turn it, they get the read and turn it back into trying to get him at second base. So this is a general round of Reaver Bp where we go hit and run, then we move them from second base, we score them from second base, and then we score them from third, and then we have a gap to gap. So there's 5 rounds. There's 20 swings. So kind of your generic BP, but we're using every other ball live. So you're getting your defense, your base running, which we call special teams. You're using pitchers. You can make this with the scoreboard on. We'll set cones up behind the batting cage to where they got to run through those before the catcher gets the ball. So obviously they're not tagging them, but if the catcher gets the ball before they get through the cones, they don't get the run. So we'll actually use it as a scrimmage that way. So some of the variations while you're watching this play out, some of the variations you can do, you can do where you just do 4th ball live. So they get 3 deads, which say they're working on hit and run. So he gets 3 of them to work on hit and run. Then the 4th one's live. So now your defense might not get as many balls that way, but it's more like a coach pitch scrimmage, and we're getting to use a baseball, and it's the 4th one. Another way we do it is we do Reaver bunting. Okay, Reaver bunting. As you're listening to me, you're seeing it. We're now at 1st and 3rd, different defensive situations, base running situations, different offensive situations. But to get back to it, we do a Reaver bunting BP as well, where we'll use a machine and put it out there and a pitcher on the mound. So like if we're got a guy at first base and we'll work on a sack and he can hold the runner, he can pick, then he can mimic coming home. The coach will put the ball in the machine, and then we can work on the bunt, the timing of your defense. And we don't have to do that as much. We do it a lot on Fridays if we do it. And we'll just do, certain situations on certain times each Friday. So there's multiple ways that you can use this. Why I like this so much? Well, game-like. The 2 things that young men have to fight every day, and they're not even aware of it, and you need to be aware of it to help them, is boredom and frustration. Boredom and frustration is what they struggle with. So if you're just stretching the same way, playing catch, the same way and doing it at the beginning of practice every time. And if you're just doing the same things, if you think you're going to be a coach that's going to roll out there with a fungo and you're just going to tell them what to do, you're going to throw up a ball and hit it, and they're going to do it. And then at the end of practice, you're going to get in the car and leave and go, man, they got that. That was awesome. Well, they got it number one, because you told them, you taught them, but then you just repeated it to that point to where they get it down. And I get it. I mean, there's some justification in doing that, and we do a little bit of that. But honestly, Reaver Bp, we'll start doing this at the end of the first week in the fall. And, you know, you've got, I mean, at a junior college, half your roster is like freshmen, so they're new to the program, but they got to figure it out. They got to communicate. The number one thing is communicating. Catchers, pitchers, middle infielders, there's a lot of talking going involved. Runners learn how to run. You know, there's aggressiveness and there's stupidity, and somewhere right in between is really where you're trying to find a young man to find himself. And the only way that he can find himself like that sometimes is giving great effort and maybe tipping the needle too far to one side, not being the smartest runner. But the only way he can learn where that needle can reach is by doing it. And so here we give great effort, and they have no choice. And then all of a sudden the game becomes secondary to them, because we literally do this. We'll do this twice a week. A lot of programs I know fall in love with it, and they do it 4 or 5 times a week. It's a lot of running. There's a lot of other things I still want to work on, but it's a great drill to do 2 to 3 times a week, and it will get them to figure out situations. The players sometimes go, "Coach, what should I have done there? You know, the ball was here, the runner's there." And sometimes the answer is figure it out. Make sure the bases are covered, make sure the ball's in the middle of the field, and we got control of the situation. There isn't ideal situations or ideal answers for everything. And Reaver Bp allows them to think and have to think at a game speed for it. If there's one of 2 things, and you're going to see the next drill as well, these are really the pillars of my program. We're known to be disciplined. My program is disciplined. My kids are disciplined. They play the games a certain way, disciplined. Awesome. That's great to hear as the head coach. My players give great effort. They play hard, I guess is the term that people use. And when you get a little bit older like I am, that's the way the game's supposed to be played anyways. But, you know, they tell me that our kids play hard. Well, they don't know what hard is until they're in it quite often. And when you're in it quite often like this, and this is practice, but yet it's a scrimmage, but yet it's a game, and the kids around them are giving great effort, then they have to give great effort. So they learn what the next level in them is for running. And I think in our game right now, that's a huge part. If I'm going out and recruiting and I watch a kid who doesn't run hard, it changes my views. And when I see kids that run hard, unfortunately, we have to be wow in today's world right now, going, wow, that guy plays hard. And you know, that's something that I'm proud about that we've been able to do. And this drill here has done a lot with that for us. I'm not getting into incredible in-depth. I've let it run. You've really seen a lot of kind of the variations we'll do. Last example I'll give you on this is we'll struggle on a weekend, maybe scoring guys from third or moving a guy from second base with no outs. And we'll go into Monday or Tuesday of that next week, and we'll do 4 rounds of Reaver Bp with like runners at second and third, no outs. And they'll get the point. Like, this is what we're doing. They know that we struggled over the weekend, and it's a great teaching point that way, to where you can go over first and thirds, things like that, what the runner at third does on what ball, and what the guy at first, what he's looking for around the second, those types of things. So that's Reaver Bp. So let me get going here to the next one. The next one is branching off of Reaver Bp. This is a flat, fast, get in the left lane drill. With this, the same concept. If you can have 2 different teams or broke up a little bit to where you've got every swing is being used. It's not getting a dead ball and working a bunch of swings. You get to put 1 ball in play. So this is an offensive drill where every swing is done with 1 out. Same format as Reaver Bp with the offense and defensive groups. With the point game, what the point game means is they're getting a point for every bag they get to. It isn't scoring. It isn't a run. It's a point for the bags they get to. So they're doing anything and everything they can to be in the left lane and giving great effort and trying to get to the next back. Now, we always do point game for what we call chain gang duty, which is basically the losing team has to stay after, and maybe they're cleaning out the shed. We've painted our outfield fence, edging the outfield warning track, things like that. So you're making it competitive. And again, a thing in today's world where I think is important is teaching the competitiveness. Some kids just have the it factor. Some don't. I think at Iowa Western, not every one of my kids comes in with the it factor, but they learn it. I think this is obviously one of the drills that really does it. So, what we're doing here, point game. So we're starting at first base. And at the end of this, I'll show you a scoring sheet. The next slide will be a scoring sheet as well. So this is all done with one out. It's not a hit and run. It is straight offense. They're trying to square up a ball. They're trying to put it in play. Coach will move it around, working on a double play, working on force outs. Again, pitcher behind the coach, behind the screen. So he can, you see him going to back up. He's listening to what the defensive call is. He can back up. Now, one thing with this point game as it runs that you'll see is guys might get blown up running a base by probably 10 feet at least. But yet the guy behind him, so like a hit here and a guy trying to go to the next base, if that was a base hit and he's trying to take home, the guy that comes out of the box is going to go to second base. He's going to go. And he might end up getting blown up by 10 feet, 15 feet. But in the reality of the game is we can always shut it down. We can always shut it down, and we will in games. But until then, we're really trying to get them get the needle into the red and get them running. And obviously what that does on the other side is makes our defense handle it. It makes our defense try to slow it down internally, try to handle the ball. So of course, as we're going way over on the offensive side, I guess in some ways, on the defensive side, we got to really be able to try to slow that down. So live double plays, they get really competitive. Double plays are -5s. So if an offensive guy hits into a double play, that's a -5. That's 5 points taken away from him. So the defense gets pretty jacked up about that. We call double plays devastating. When we turn them in the spring, it's devastating to the other team. And when we get them turned against us, they're devastating. And we learn that during the point game because that's a 5-point switch real quick. When you're hitting into double plays or on the defense, you're able to turn them. All right, so there's the scoring sheet for it. Okay, the scoring sheet and again, it's 1 point per bag. So if I go back here, if a runner goes to the next bag and say he got to that bag, that's 1. Okay, that's 1. So when it's a base hit, got a couple fly balls here. We call those -2s, by the way. If it's just a fly ball that gets caught, when they get to the next bag and then they go to second and they go to third. Those are the points that they're getting. The guy from first goes second and third, he gets 2 points. The guy from first, or the guy that hits it gets the first, so there's 3 points. So, 3 points is good. That's kind of average. But with that being said, a -5 all of a sudden takes a lot of that back away from you that way. So here's the points again. You got 1 point per bag, -5 for double plays. Bad base running. Bad base running is when you tag on a baseball that you shouldn't be tagging on, trying to advance, and you get thrown out. That's bad base running by us. Being like at second base and a ball is hit in front of you to the shortstop, you try to advance to third and they throw you out at third base. That is that's a -5. So there is the discrepancy on, well, you have them get thrown out trying to, go to second base out of the batter's box and they get thrown out by 10 feet. I get it. And some of these guys that now love this drill and use it weekly struggled with that at the beginning, but there's one way to teach it where a reaction, like on a ground ball or a fly ball, when to tag or when to advance with where that ground ball is. Then there's another thing about in a real game we would just round it and shut it down. All right, breakdown is round. So this goes back to boredom and frustration to me. So I'm going to show you a couple drills here that we do before we even throw. We'll stretch. We don't stretch the same way every day. We might static stretch. We might plyo stretch. We got groups. We got them as a whole. We'll circle them up in the outfield. We'll change it up every day. Basically, almost a different coach every day will stretch them out as well, because we all do different things as coaches. So, and to me, that just keeps the interest of the kid. They got to know what we're doing instead of just going through the motions. We don't ever just play catch right after we stretch. If we can go into something else that's pertinent to what we're trying to coach that day or trying to teach them, then we won't throw if we don't have to. There's actually times we're into practice and we do not throw for an hour into practice. And with that being said, it's just the organization of how you want to go about it. Some coaches will say, well, I like for him to be in that routine. Well, I get it. And I like the routine to be what's next. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Okay, let's do it. I like that instead of, same thing, new day. This is what we're doing. Then go play catch, same thing. And I just change it up. So this is one of a few drills you're going to see here quick. A breakdown around. So we just stretch and we'll get them out there, all position players at home plate. They'll have their gloves on. They'll run with their gloves on. Position players run with their baseball gloves on. Alternate infielders and outfielders. This is just an option if you have that number of guys to do it with. And then we'll have guys at first and second base positions. And then, again, and a lot of people I know out there who are hearing this and have heard me speak other times in other places around the country, one of the things I always say is cones. Cones are some of the best coaches. We use cones all the time. Cones, and why I say they're some of your best coaches, because wherever I put them down as a coach, that's where they're going to continue to tell that player where to go to or where to start or where to run to. Those things are important to me. And so on the teaching side, you might not have 5 or 6 coaches, but you might have 50 coaches if you go out and buy them. And then you can purposely put them wherever you want on the field to help you coach these kids. And so I always talk about cones being some of your greatest assistant coaches, and they help without the kids cheating or, of course, being lazy. So they started at home. They got their back turned, so we got a little bit more game speed like. You'll see him, and then this guy's going to round. The first guy broke down. The next guy's going to round right here. We got a position player at first base, a position player at second base, infielders. Next guy's going to break down. We got pitchers covering. You see cones going across, going there, where they break down, even where the first baseman and second baseman start, so they're spread apart a little bit. They got to communicate. We haven't even thrown yet. And you'll always have some infielders that go, well, we haven't thrown yet, and you got me throwing to first base. This isn't going to kill them, guys. They're fielding just a little ground ball, and they're tossing it over. In fact, it makes them concentrate a little bit more. And I like it because now the pitchers have to handle possibly some bad tosses. In this drill, we typically don't let the position player underhand the ball to them. We do not allow them to do that. That's what we want any time in the game if we can get it, and because that's a lot easier for the out. But right now we're working on being able to handle the tougher throws, and to be able to do that, I think one of the things to do is obviously put them in the situation to where they got to throw overhand. So you see one of my players underhand, right? That's an easy play. That's awesome in the game. I'll take that 10 out of 10, but that's not how it always is, and I need my pitchers to be able to handle some of the tougher throws. So in practices, we traditionally always have them throw overhand wherever they're at as an infielder around first base, just so the pitcher has to be able to handle it. Pitchers obviously got to stay on the inside, not get ran over. I like the game speed here because it's just not going through the motions. There's a big guy running down the line. He's got cleats on, and you've got to tend to do things a little bit more realistic that way so you don't get hurt. Why do I have them run with their gloves on? Well, not just because the infielders are going to go field at their position, but outfielders need to learn how to run with their gloves on. You know, they go chasing after a ball in the outfield, and they got one arm's pumping like crazy, and the other one looks like it's carrying, you know, a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread just out here like this. Just, you know, you're not very fast. They need to run. So we always talk about run, catch. Run, catch. Well, to be able to teach that when I'm out in the outfield with them, we already did this before we even got into the practice part with the outfielders, where they're running right now, and they're running with their glove on. So they know how to do it, and we do it quite a bit. Now, the 4-base running, another great drill that we do a couple times a week. 2 runners at each base, if all possible. At least 1 runner, but 2 if at all possible. Every runner at second base and third base are working on their own. And what I mean by that is the third baseman doesn't have a guy at second, and the second baseman doesn't have a guy at third or first. So they're working their own on their own at those bases. The runner at first base, we're doing a hit and run, and the hitters is working a hit and run as well. So we're working on rounding bags. We're working on locating the baseball. We're working on what are you looking for? What are your objectives at each base? And we're wanting to see that while we're getting their legs loose at the beginning of practice. The pitchers for us stand out in the outfield at all 3 positions, so the runners can have an idea of where the position players are at and what they're doing with baseballs. Just for the fact of, do I tag on that? Can I go on that? Instead of there not being anybody in the outfield. We go as far as our on-deck guy. As you see this ball get hit, here comes my on-deck guy. He's talking to him. He's telling him. We try to cover every little thing. I was taught a long time ago, your worst coaches are the ones that are going to yell at the kids about everything, and they didn't teach them anything about it. But they are going to yell at them about it. And then your best coaches are the ones that, at least if I'm going to call a guy out, it's because we've covered it 100 times. And I've never forgotten that. So, you know, I'm old school, and I'll get after my guys, but I'm only going to get after them with justification of that we've done this 100 times. It is what we do. So when you're talking about warming up, getting their legs loose, some special teams here, some base running, our runner at first base will look in. He'll even point to where the ball is on the hit and run. That's another good drill especially for the younger kids, for coaches to teach them, is the fact of, is he picking the ball up and how soon did he pick it up? Because if he can point to it right away, or does he have to look around and then point to see where the ball is? So we do that in practices quite a bit. I try to have 2 guys at each base because I want the runner to be able to work on turns at second base or at third base or at first base even. Now, the big thing is so much of our game is bang, bang. And what I mean by bang, 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 you're safe, bang, bang, you're out. But there's so much that came up to it. You know, we'll complain about that call, or we'll be excited because we got the call. But there's so much more that came into it before that allowed you to either be safe on that bang, bang call or that you were out. And a lot of it's turns. So I want them to be able to work on their turns. Hit and runs. The big thing we try to do with hit and runs in games, in practice for the most part, everything we do, we actually are, number one, obviously trying to hit it on the ground, but we're trying to hit it up the middle. And why I say up the middle is because you really traditionally don't hit it right back up the middle. The guy's throwing from 84 to 94. And my thing is this, on the hit and runs, and I'll just give you my piece on this real quick with this base running, is that hit and runs, they'll try to aim it, they'll try to go the opposite field, and all they'll do is foul it off, and then they look at you down at third and go, oh, I tried. You know, no, I really needed that to be put in play. So we tell them, try to hit it up the middle. They end up hitting it in the 4-hole. They ended up hitting it where the second baseman was, and sometimes they do hit it right up the middle, and you're like, wow, I didn't see that happening, you know, but you laugh about it. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but they will put a lot more balls in play. So that's just a little side note for what we actually try to do when we're so offensive and trying to be aggressive. All right, so here's a few of the T. We got 2T, 1T, 3T. We have all these. these can go with different sizes of rosters that you have, different age groups. I've done this with 12, 13-year-olds, much less my college guys. When I first got to Iowa Western 19 years ago, I was one coach. I had a part-time guy and a volunteer guy that could show up sporadically. So I was really always trying to find ways to utilize as many players to try to get some stuff done to allow me to coach instead of just hitting and just throwing BP. And still today, I mean, if I'm hitting and throwing BP, I can't watch as much as I can when I got other people doing that. And this is where I came up with 2T for myself, and it was beneficial in multiple ways. It's realistic ground balls, because these guys don't hit perfect, fungo, backspin, 2 hoppers, and making them the infielders look good. These balls go all different ways. It allows those hitters to work on what I call barrel awareness. Barrel awareness is, I know we're trying to get behind balls, we're trying to backspin them, but in this drill, we're really not doing that. But they are learning their hands, their eyes, and the barrel. And I really contribute a lot of our success because of this drill on the hitting side of what we're able to do, knowing where our body is and what we're trying to do to hit a ground ball. So as you read through that, and I talked probably a little bit too much here, but 2T right here. So you can do multiple things. We're doing double plays right now here. So the guy on the first base side hit to the third baseman. The guy on the third base side hit to the shortstop. The guy on the first base side hits his second baseman. I mean, just like fungos. That way, we have a pitcher on the mound. He'll go cover, or he'll got first baseman starting the double play. So pitcher getting over. Then you're going to have a catcher coming out. And those are outs that we need to make. So we call it, a lot of those, like that catcher running out right there, we call that 10% perfection. Just like we got pitchers on the breakdown and rounds covering first base, that's 10% perfection. There's about 10% of the game that you can really almost truly perfect. And it's being where you need to be, the communication, being where you need to be, and those very little plays like this at our level that you should be able to try to make. So we call it 10% perfection. So this is the 2T. So again, just to finish up, outfielders are hitting. I have outfielders hitting to infielders. You're also seeing over on the first base side, those are pitchers sprinting. So they're getting their conditioning in. When I first got this or started doing this, again, many years ago, I didn't want to be hurrying up and trying to get stuff done and then conditioning at the end of practice and stuff like that. So they would run. They would run at this time, and it gave your infielders a timing mechanism. 3T, a little bit larger group. Half my infielders are hitting to half my outfielders. They're coming up with a ball. They're learning how to long hop, and that's a catcher that's just working on being able to catch a long hop, a tag. And then it's going to rotate here in a second, and you're going to see the infielders. And now you got half my infielders taking ground balls, and you got half of my outfielders hitting to them. Now listen, I'm a program that I have a JV program for local kids. We're in a metropolitan area of over 1 million people, and I have a JV program for local kids that still want to play baseball while they're getting a degree, and that's awesome. And I have been able to incorporate them into all of this and watch them develop a little bit. And they might not ever play on my conference squad, and that's fine, but they're getting to play baseball while they're getting their education. And I've been able to incorporate them into this. And what it allows me is a couple things. It allows me a lot more team unity and culture. It allows my conference guys that might have a little bit more ability to be able to communicate and work with maybe a lesser talented kid, but still a great kid that's got energy and being out there. They got to be able to handle them. That's no different than high school. And I hear it all the time about high school. Well, I can't put my freshmen with my varsity guys. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can do that in Reaver Bp. You can do it in point game. When a JV guy is hitting, then your JV defensive guys are up taking those balls. When the very next guy is a conference guy, then put your conference defenses up. So you can do it. It's just whether you really want to do it or not. All right, so last one's 1T. for this. 1T is, I got infielders here, and they'll field the ball, throw it across, and then they go up to second base. And then as this guy loads to get ready to hit, you see him, oh, that ball is in front of him, see him go back. How simple is this drill, but how great is this? I don't know how much, we go out and recruit and how much we see where the guy is running all ball in front of him and gets blown up at third base when he shouldn't have even been going. So he's getting ground balls, but yet you're getting base running as well. And then, of course, you've got the guys at the plate here just trying to learn their barrel and being able to hit some good ground balls, whether it's in front of the guy, see him get ahead of it right there. It's this beautiful thing, body control, throw the guy out, another one behind him. So, and then he'll just move up to base running. Very simple drill, but very huge, like that play right there. Utility drill, first thing I say is be creative. You can do a million things with this, and I do it all with just me rolling it out, except for the outfielders. The outfielders start with balls in a bucket. They just take it out of a bucket, so nothing's done with a fungo here. The outfielders will long hop. You get to see a lot of athleticism. So we got a backhand, and then a body control is short, and then the left fielder just long hop second base. The center fielder is long hop in third. Second guy at second through to first. Okay, that's what it was. So I'm going to go back again and let it start running again so you can see it. All right. Now what we do is we rotate. Everybody just rotates, other than the outfielders that just flip-flop from center to left. Left fielder throwing long hop in second, center fielder long hop in third. Everybody just rotates. You see that guy rotating to home. So they do all these. Now look at the guys on all four. And then he's going down to get a ball, has to get up. The other guys has to get around the ball a little bit more, body control. And that might be, it'll end up being my catcher there, first baseman. So why did I do this? Well, it's fun. It gets them moving around. At the high school level and lower, you really gets to justify, yeah, that kid is athletic, or no, he isn't athletic. And it helps you prove a lot that way to yourself, much less maybe some of them. But it's the fact of moving them around. And we do a ton of different things. I'll throw a pop-up over the guy at home plate. It'll be like towards the backstop. He'll catch it over his shoulder, turn around, long hop, second base. We'll do anything and everything. Be creative with it. So I'm just showing you this so we can maybe start getting you thinking. Last drill here, no doubles. This is hard getting out of the box, which we're all trying to teach. We all love it. We're trying to hard turns, big turns, no infield here. It's all outfield versus your infielders. You're going to see the infielders have their gloves at second base. You're going to see the guy trying to turn. I'm going to show you just real quick multiple ways that. Now the guy that just hit it will go to first or go to second base. He'll get his glove that's laying there on the grass. See the turn? The guy was up with it, long hopped it in. Now we're going to show you fungo. This is my favorite way to do it, just because of the placement. It's way more. It gets a little bit more competitive. Obviously, coaches can place it in the gaps. And they can get them running around a little bit more. Here's one more of these. So in the gap, you got to try to get to it. So again, it's called no doubles. You're teaching guys getting out of the box. You're working your infielders, obviously picking at second base, but then your outfielders working the long hops while your infielders get to run and then pick tags at second base. All right, so that's my time. It went really quick for me. This is my last challenge. Use both sides of the baseball as often as you can. I go watch practices or I go to different programs, and you got one guy throwing, you got one guy hitting, you got everybody else kind of playing 500 in the outfield, or they're moving around. You don't got enough fungos going on. You got no base running going on. And, that's a big challenge that I've learned, is trying to use both sides of the baseball. Pitching and catching. Fielding and throwing, hitting and running, whatever you can do, you need to do it. It's going to better that's going to better, number one, that player on both sides of that baseball, and obviously your team on both sides of that baseball. This is my contact information. That's my Twitter to direct message me for anything I can help you with. And then, of course, my email. Again, I want to thank Rick Hitt. I want to thank the ABCA. Today, I've never worn a uniform since 2005. I wore one today, and I wanted to represent the year 2021, and hopefully that season comes about, and I'm really excited for it, and I know you guys are too. But until then, be safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, and stay away from each other, 6 feet. See you guys.
We're here with Coach Reardon, Iowa Western Community College. Coach Reardon, we know how much time that thing must have taken to put together, to have somebody assigned to shoot it, to edit everything, put it in a PowerPoint. Holy cow, thank you so much, man. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's obviously my honor, my privilege. I can't do any of this, of course. I've done two things well. I married really well to be a coach's wife, and I've hired really good assistants. So, credit goes a lot to those people.
Well, just the footage alone. So I'm going to jump in. I'll take the first question. The video will be available January 22nd. If you've registered to attend the virtual convention, you'll be able to find it in our ABCA video library. That way you'll be able to pause it, review what's going on, see where the players are going. But that leads me into my first question, Coach. I know you said a lot of this, developed over you trying to fight the boredom and fatigue that normally takes place with the basic routine, and I'm sitting here thinking, like so many coaches, they want to get their guys to play hard, to be disciplined. And having seen your clubs play, having seen the discipline and the constant hustle, I'm looking at what you're doing in practice. I'm thinking about how you guys play the game. And it seems to me that like everything you're doing practice-wise requires like mental discipline, requires hustle, requires those guys to be in the right spot at the right time. And it just seems like all of this ties into this bigger picture you have for Iowa Western. Am I going in the right direction with that? Is that accurate?
I mean, I think so. You go through life either humble or being humbled. So I'm trying to be humble through all this. So I appreciate it, JR. But boredom and frustration is just something I've learned that our kids got to fight in their lives. It's not just on the field. So I'm trying to do my part on the field. We never have the same practice twice in back-to-back days. We don't even stretch the same every day. As a coaching staff, we'll take turns stretching them. So we're doing something different. When it comes to, playing hard, again, that's why I kind of put it as competitive practice drills where they got to compete. They got to do it at a certain speed. If you notice all these drills, somebody's waiting on somebody or the whole team's waiting on somebody to put a ball in play to execute it or handle the ball or base running. I mean, everybody's waiting on somebody to do it and to do it right and do it at a certain level. And I think that's where you can, do so many things. You can teach the game. You can teach the game at a high level. You can teach the competitiveness. You can teach anxiety. The game, our practices there's anxiety when everybody's waiting on somebody to achieve something, to execute something successfully. There's a anxiety in there that you have to teach them that, hey, you're not going to stop it. You just got to learn how to control it and know everything's going to be okay. But we got to do it at this level, at this high level.
I mean, that's one of the things that was my biggest takeaway is everybody is waiting on somebody, but there's no downtime really. I mean, there's constantly something going on. It's not like your guys are standing in this long fungo line. It's not like you got 500 pitchers lined up back behind the mound. But there's one thing going on at a time, and everybody is lifted up on a pedestal. Like, is that guy going to do so? It allows you as a coach a great opportunity to evaluate what's going on, too. Was that intentional, or is that just a byproduct of the boredom fatigue?
I think everything's intentional with what I do, whether it's creating the anxiety, whether it's getting them, there's nothing more scarier than a young man that's comfortable and confident. But to get to that point, I mean, we can give them false confidence. We can just go out there every day and never change their heartbeat and just hit them a fungo or roll them a ball and tell them what's going to happen and then go out and do it. Or we can have somebody up there rolling over a ball or hitting a little bit harder or base running and defense is going to throw you out or whatever it may be. Or, you can get it to that next level. And that's just what I've tried to do throughout time. And, a lot of this goes back to who I've surrounded myself with, who's hired me, who I've worked for as a pitching coach growing up in this business. Back in the day, I had a lot of sitting back during practices and watching the team stuff going on and just started taking bits and pieces here, there, and everywhere and getting them to where when I got my first job here 19 years ago now, it just kind of really grew from there really quickly.
That's awesome, Coach. That's awesome. Now we have a bunch of questions from our members, but maybe we'll start with some kind of quick hitter ones. How long does it take you to get through your Reaver Bp? I know you said you also have a JV club. You oftentimes practice together. How long does Reaver Bp take? And how many guys?
Yeah, I mean, Reaver Bp, when we obviously put the whole team out there and knock it out, I mean, it can be. Now, again, it goes down to many variables. How many rounds you're doing, if you're just going to do 5 rounds or 4 rounds of 4. We do rounds of 4 is what we do. And like I said, there's options in there where you can do rounds of 6 if you got lesser numbers. But for us, typically, it's about an hour and 45 minutes to do Reaver Bp and doing the 5 rounds of it. And don't get me wrong, there'll be moments in there also where I'm stopping it just for less than a minute most of the time and maybe talking about something real quick. I mean, we do coach. I do slow things down. We do just fungo. We do that. I just don't do it a lot. I just, we break things down. But with that being said, also, when you're trying to teach a certain speed, you got to do it in a certain speed and do it a lot. So that's why we do. So, but for Reaver Bp, typically an hour and 45 for having like 55 guys total in our program.
Awesome. Now, this question just dovetails right into that next one. And let's assume we're in a pre-COVID or post-COVID era where this isn't a variable. How long is your typical team practice?
Most of the time, tops, probably 3 hours, tops. Maybe a little bit longer sometimes, but I'd say not very often. I mean, I'm not a guy who just wants to be out there. Guys, the one thing, so real quick, years ago, one of the things, you have pro ball guys come back, work out with you, that's a great thing, stuff like that. And I'm like, I remember telling them one of them, hey man, you don't have to be out here shagging with our guys. Like, don't worry about that. And he's like, no, coach, I got to do this. And I go, what do you mean you got to do it? And he goes, I got to get used to just standing around out in the outfield with cleats on. My back gets sore, my hamstring. If I don't, that was a huge learning point for me to where just learning on being out there. And so there is to me, an important part of our games. Our days are long. You get them there early. You got to set up for BP. You take BP. The other team takes BP or vice versa. And then you got in and out. And then you play a double header and there's 20 minutes between games. It is a marathon. So I don't think it's always efficient for us to have such a great organized practice and knock out a ton of stuff in an hour and 45 or 2 hours when a day takes 7 hours. And I'm not saying 6 hour practice is 5 hour practice. I'm not saying that either, but you do have to get them out there for longer point. Our game is just so repetitious. It is the most repetitious, game out there. Guys get drafted in the NFL and NBA, they get a chance to be right there the next year. Ours, obviously, you got to go through minors and you got to rack up some ABs, rack up some innings.
No doubt, no doubt. Now, this question is rather appropriate because you kind of touched on, the coaching, because you said it's not like we're not doing any coaching, but what is going on during Reaver BP? Like, do you just stop everything if something is not going to your liking? Are you breaking down mechanics, or is it just letting them go? Do you stop the drill? Do you coach afterward? What are your thoughts there?
No, I mean, so typically where I will be is right around second base area. I might be that umpire that's right behind the mound. I kind of stand there behind the screen, the coach and the pitcher that's behind that screen. You might see me on the back side of the mound. So I can be in the middle of the field, working with the middle infielders, working with base runners, things of that nature. So it's intense. It's high speed. My coaching is high speed in it. Obviously, if I need to. So the one thing that we try to do also in practices is I give my sophomores 2 timeouts. Okay, this is another sidebar thing that maybe these guys will like, but there's when you're trying to teach your kids to communicate and teach them to serve and teach them to lead. I mean, that is leading, is serving, but I give them 2 timeouts in practices. And they'll be like, Coach, can I take a time out here? And I'll be like, yes. And they'll bring everybody together. And it's not a bitch session or anything. It's just, hey, guys, obviously we're not very good right now. We need to slow down. We need to handle that ball. It needs to go to second base. We don't need to try to get the lead run, whatever it may be. So it's a good, because there's times in a game where it saves me a time going to the mound when my sophomore first baseman calls time and brings all the infield and the catcher to the mound, and they're getting stuff done. We're practicing those moments too. So there's a lot of different ways it can go on.
That's 100% awesome right there, man. I love that incorporation. I think that's a phenomenal tool in practice.
They only get 2 though.
Well, hey, 2's all you need, man. They get that.
Sometimes they use none of them. Sometimes they use 2 within the first hour.
Uh-oh. Well, then they'll be in trouble there. But you're just giving your guys an opportunity to be leaders, and I think that's well, awesome. They need to, first and foremost, they need to know what moment they're in. Instead of the oh factor, oh God, oh no, oh crap, whatever. They need to know they're in that moment. So, I mean, that's the first thing, and they'll realize it, and then, they'll be like, Coach, we're calling a timeout here. So I think, and it goes into the leading side, but they got to know they're in that moment first. Yeah, no doubt. Well, the next question, delves into, Reaver BP a little bit more, but they're looking for a breakdown of the dead reps versus the live reps. Does defense field and throw on dead reps or only live reps? So they want a nuts and bolts. This is what's going on. Sure.
So for us, they don't do anything with the dead balls. We'll have pitchers that, we'll have like 2 guys or 4 guys out in the gaps or whatever. And they're running around getting those balls. When I first got here and didn't have the size of roster and the coaches and whatever else, I would usually have 1 or 2 pitchers out there, and that was it. And they were just constantly running around and that was their conditioning. That was part of their conditioning. Just like when you see them running to first base on the 2T or 3T or whatever, that they were running around. So they were picking them up because, again, if you're not going to pick up those dead balls, they're going to be getting in the way, and we obviously don't need that and getting somebody hurt. And then the second thing is, if they were going after every ball, it was just going to take forever. We'd have to wait for them to get back on the live. So we always have somebody out there getting them.
Awesome. And another question delves into the point system, which I think is great because ultimately you're creating competition within everything you're doing. But they would like you to break down the point system within the competition of Reaver BP.
No, on point game, you mean?
Yes, sir. Point game. Yes, sir.
Yeah, on point game. So on point game, it's a point game. So say we start with a guy on first base, and the guy at the plate, everything's done with 1 out. They typically they're getting 1 swing. So you're laying it in their form, or you're putting it in to the machine, however you're doing it. He puts it in play. And let's just say he gets a base hit up the middle. The guy from first gets to second. So there's 1 point. He's going to third. Okay. because we want him to run. He's going to go to third. Let's just say the center fielder is going to end up throwing him out. The infielder comes in, gets the ground ball, long hop third, tags him out. That runner still got the point at second base. So there's 1 point. But the hitter, this is where, and I'm using this example because this is where you want your team to get to. At least that's how I feel. That's how ours has got to throughout the years. That hitter already knows when he got the base hit up the middle, he knows what his teammates looking to do. And this translates into the game itself. He knows what his teammates looking to do, which is go first to third. So he is not just taking it easy until he gets around first going, oh, wow, he went to third. No, he knows it right away. So he's out of the box and he's sliding into second base. So he got first. He slides into second while that ball went to third. And so now he got 2 points. So the offense got 3 points there by two players on that team running their tail off.
Awesome, man. So just to sum that up, guys, it's total bases and there's no minuses for aggression. No. It's highly encouraged, right?
Yeah. The really three biggest minuses of base running that we do, I'll say 4. First of all, is tagging up on a shallow fly ball that you don't need to be tagging up on, and then trying to run. We don't do that because I want them to learn which one they can run on, and the little bit deeper one that tag up on taggable balls. The ground ball in front of them at shortstop, and the shortstop gets him at third. That's a -5. Line drives to infielders, which is something we can't practice. This is the other thing about what we're so good at, going back on line drives with less than 2 outs. Between Reaver Bp and point game, our guys become really good at it, and we don't get doubled up. But if we do in this game, a point game, that's a -5. And then the fourth one was a ball that goes back off the screen. If it hits the turf and hits the coach screen, those little ones that we make, those little what we call eye screens, if it hits the turf like a ground ball and hits that, then we're playing it like the pitcher has a ball behind that screen, so he'll turn. But if the runner took off like to third base and we throw him out, that's a -5. So we want them to not just be going if it hits us. Now, if it's a line drive, off the screen, I can change the points. Like that pitcher wasn't going to catch that. That was a base hit up the middle. So I'll dictate the points then. Does that make sense, JR?
It does. It makes perfect sense. I mean, you've gotten really creative in the sense that, like, hey, these are the biggest base running miscues. We're gonna take away some of these points from you.
And they're competing. We do it for chain gang. So we call it chain gang duty. You remember the old days, like the prisoners, like doing out and out, out somewhere, and they're all chained together. That's kind of what we did. So the winning team gets to leave. They're going to the locker room, shower, going to go to the cafeteria. The other team is, weed eating, edging, painting a fence, cleaning out the shed, doing something.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we've got about 2 minutes, about a minute left here, Coach. I'm scrolling through some of the questions here, and we got to the practice components of it. I kind of want to close this thing off by giving you about a minute or so just to talk about, the transformational nature of junior college baseball and the role that it plays in the bigger picture of things, because I think it's truly important that people understand what it is and why it helps the game.
Well, at my age, and I was a product of junior college, but at my age, junior college many moons ago, you went to junior college if you couldn't get into a 4-year, you couldn't afford a 4-year, or you were a juvenile delinquent, basically. Years, and I was 2 out of those 3. I went to junior college, so you can figure out which ones. But that's not what it is. It's just not what it is. We are Division I type programs. We are pro ball, Division I. We have great kids. Our team GPA was a 3.5, and I'm not just talking about Iowa Western. This is so many of them out there now. The coaches that are out there that are educating in a classroom, they're taking care of their field, they're fundraising. Coaching is like the last 5% sometimes on the field. 95% is everything else. But junior college, is just a place. Time management skills, long days, competition. I got people that that will call me up and be, I got a guy who's a JUCO guy. Well, what's a JUCO guy? You know, and I mean, it's so many of us are placing so many guys out of here at our programs to major four-year schools, whether there's D1, D2, NAI, and the kids come in here, they get fundamentally sound in their academics, in their athletics, they get stronger. They're simply growing up. It's long falls, long springs, and then do it all over again the second year. I think, you know, let's just put it this way. I'm a father. I got two sons. They're both great in school. One is just is graduating here this spring and going to Central Missouri next year. And I got a 14-year-old that's going to come to Iowa Western after his high school career and play, you know, be a middle infielder here. So, I mean, it's just, I think it's the perfect thing. I don't know why people don't go to junior college. That's the biggest question I always have is why wouldn't you go? It's just like pro ball. Everybody wants to go play pro ball and have the reps, but you know, that is what junior college is.
Awesome. Well said, Coach. Well said. Gentlemen, you can join us at 5:15 p.m. Eastern time or in the next 4